They stood under stage lights, singing about forever. But behind those love songs, behind the harmonies and the choreography and the tears in the crowd, their lives were quietly, completely falling apart. Marriages ending in courtrooms, addictions swallowing careers whole, betrayals so deep they never spoke again. And through all of it, through the screaming arguments and the lawyers and the heartbreak, they kept performing, kept smiling, kept singing about love.
It's been a long...
This is the story of 10 soul couples who gave the world the most beautiful music about love, while living through some of the ugliest moments of their lives. And the couple at number 1 didn't just fall apart. What happened to them shook the entire music industry to its core. And most people have never heard the full story. Stay with me, because by the time we reach the end, you're going to hear love songs very differently.
Beyond the sky, it's been a...
Number 10, Ike and Tina Turner. You already know the headline, but you don't know the full scope of the contradiction. And it is one of the most jaw-dropping contradictions in the history of American music. From 1960 through the mid-1970s, the Ike and Tina Turner Revue was one of the hardest-working live acts on the planet. Night after night, city after city, they performed with a raw, electric chemistry that made audiences feel like they were watching two people completely consumed by each other. Their 1971 recording of Proud Mary didn't just become a hit, it became a defining moment in soul music. Tina's voice, that growl, that power, that ache, made every person in every room feel something real. And Ike sold that image relentlessly. The love act, the power couple, the unstoppable duo. But backstage, the truth was something no one in that audience could have imagined. Tina Turner's 1986 autobiography, I, Tina, and the subsequent film, What's Love Got to Do With It, gave the world a window into a relationship defined not by love, but by systematic abuse and control, physical violence, psychological domination, financial imprisonment. Tina has described being beaten before performances, walking onto stage with injuries she hid beneath makeup and stage lighting. She finally left in 1976, walking away from a limousine on the way to a Dallas hotel with 36 cents and a mobile card. That was it. Everything she'd built, gone. And Ike kept performing, kept using the name, kept trying to rebuild what he'd lost, never quite accepting that what he'd had wasn't a partnership. It was a prison. The contradiction at the heart of the Ike and Tina story is this. The chemistry you heard on those records was real. The music was real. But beneath it was a story so dark, it took decades for the world to fully reckon with it. Tina Turner went on to become one of the greatest solo artists in history. She survived. She thrived. She became a symbol of resilience so powerful that when she passed in May of 2023, the entire world stopped to grieve. But Ike, he died in 2007, largely estranged from the legacy they'd built together. 10 entries to go through, and we're already deep. But entry number 9 might be the most heartbreaking story of a talent cut down before the world ever got to see the full picture. Number 9. Marvin Gaye and Anna Gordy Gaye. Marvin Gaye was not just a soul singer. He was a philosopher, a poet, an artist who used music to explore the full complexity of what it meant to be human. Desire, spirituality, pain, joy, political rage. And for years, one of the central relationships in his life was with Anna Gordy Gaye, the older sister of Motown founder Berry Gordy. They married in 1964. She was 17 years his senior. And from the beginning, the relationship carried a weight that went beyond romance. It was also, inescapably, a professional entanglement. Anna's family owned the label. Her brother held the keys to Marvin's career. Through the late 1960s and into the early 1970s, Marvin was at the peak of his creative powers. What's Going On, released in 1971, is widely considered one of the greatest albums in the history of recorded music. Let's Get It On followed in 1973, an album that became almost synonymous with intimacy itself. But while Marvin was singing about love and desire and spiritual connection, his personal life was fracturing. He fell deeply in love with Janice Hunter, a 17-year-old he met in 1973. His marriage to Anna was over in every meaningful way, though the legal divorce wouldn't come until 1977. And when it did, it came with a settlement so extraordinary, it became the stuff of music industry legend. Anna received the royalties from Marvin's next album as part of the divorce settlement. That album became Here, My Dear, released in 1978, and it is one of the strangest, most emotionally raw documents in soul music history. Marvin made the entire album about the divorce, about Anna, about the marriage, about the bitterness and the tenderness and the regret. He was essentially paying his ex-wife with an album about his ex-wife. Anna reportedly hated it. She initially considered suing him for invasion of privacy. Music critics at the time didn't know what to make of it. But over the decades, Here, My Dear has been reappraised as a masterpiece. Raw, uncomfortable, and completely unlike anything else in the Motown catalog.
What's going on?
Marvin's life continued to spiral after the divorce. Drug addiction tightened its grip. Financial problems mounted. He spent time in Hawaii, in Belgium, trying to outrun himself. He came back. He recorded Midnight Love. He gave the world Sexual Healing. And then, on April 1st, 1984, one day before his 45th birthday, Marvin Gaye was shot and killed by his father. The full story of Marvin Gaye is a story about genius and torment living side by side for an entire lifetime. And the love songs he left behind carry a weight that only deepens the more you know about the life behind them. We still have 8 more couples to get through, and I need to tell you, the story coming up at number 8 involves a duo whose hits were pure joy, pure sunshine, and the collapse behind it was anything but.
If these stories are speaking to you, there is so much more where this came from. Hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Join the Soul Lens family and never miss a story like this again. Now back to the countdown.
Number 8. Ashford and Simpson. Now here is a couple that breaks the pattern slightly, and that's exactly why they belong on this list. Nick Ashford and Valerie Simpson were, for decades, one of the great love stories in soul music. They wrote together. They performed together. They married in 1974 and stayed married until Nick's death in 2011. So where does the darkness come in? It comes in the decade before the music, in the story of what it cost them to get there. Before Ashford and Simpson were stars in their own right, they were the architects behind some of the greatest songs in the Motown catalog. Ain't No Mountain High Enough, You're All I Need to Get By, Reach Out and Touch, songs that became pillars of American music. But the work extracted a brutal price. The early years of their creative partnership and their developing romance were marked by serious financial hardship, personal instability, and the particular kind of exhaustion that comes from pouring everything you have into work and watching other people receive the credit.
Take a chance as you go.
Valerie Simpson, in particular, has spoken about bouts of depression and the emotional toll of a life lived almost entirely in service to music. When their collaborative album, Send It, came out in 1977, and they finally stepped into the spotlight themselves, It was the culmination of years of grinding that had cost them more than most people knew. And the music they made, romantic, soaring, joyful, reflected none of the struggle. It reflected the aspiration, the ideal, the version of love they'd fought so hard to hold on to. What makes Ashford and Simpson genuinely moving is that the love won. They stayed together, but the journey to that love was harder and darker than the songs ever let on. And that's a kind of hidden story too. 7 more entries. And the story at number 7 involves a duo you almost certainly know, whose biggest hit was a duet about undying devotion, and whose real-life devotion was unraveling in real time as they recorded it. Number 7. Barry White and Glodian James. Barry White's voice was not just an instrument, it was an event. That low, rumbling baritone, the one that seemed to vibrate at a frequency somewhere between music and seduction, made Barry White one of the most distinctive figures in the history of soul and disco. And for years, the woman at his side, both personally and professionally, was Glodian James, one of the backup singers who became his second wife in 1974. Together, they recorded as a duo. Together, they were the public face of a love so deep it seemed almost theatrical. And Barry's music, with its orchestral arrangements and its declarations of total devotion, seemed to document that love in real time. But the marriage was carrying weight that the public never saw. Barry White's personal demons were significant. The financial pressures of maintaining an extraordinarily lavish lifestyle, the orchestras, the productions, the image, created constant tension. He and Glodian separated in the early 1980s, though they did not formally divorce until 1988. And during much of that period, Barry kept performing, kept recording, kept selling the vision of total, overwhelming romantic love, while his own marriage was quietly dissolving in private. There's something almost operatic about the contradiction. A man whose entire artistic identity was built around love, devotion, and desire, struggling behind closed doors with the very thing he sold to the world. Barry White died in 2003. Glodian James remained connected to his legacy. But what they had, and what it cost, sits just beneath the surface of every record they ever made, together. 6 entries remain. And the story at number 6 features one of the most celebrated Motown groups of all time, and a relationship between 2 of its members that became one of the label's most carefully guarded secrets. Number 6. Diana Ross and Berry Gordy.
They're here for business, buddy.
They were never a couple in the public sense. There was no joint album with their names on the cover, no formal announcement, no red carpet moment. But the relationship between Diana Ross and Berry Gordy, Motown's founder and its most luminous star, was the worst-kept secret in the music industry for the better part of 2 decades. And the music it produced, directly and indirectly, shaped the sound of American soul at its commercial peak. Berry Gordy signed Diana Ross and the Supremes in 1961. What grew between them over the following years was romantic, creative, and deeply complicated. They had a daughter together, Rhonda Ross Kendrick, born in 1971, though this was not publicly confirmed for many years. The power dynamic at the center of their relationship was extraordinary. Berry was Diana's boss, her mentor, the man who built the machine that made her famous. Diana was the face of Motown, the artist who embodied everything Berry had built, and who represented his vision of black excellence, elegance, and crossover success more than anyone else. When their romantic relationship eventually ended, the professional one continued, in a form increasingly defined by tension and competition. Diana Ross left Motown for RCA in 1981. It was a seismic departure. The label she had helped build into a cultural institution was something she walked away from. And the years that followed were marked by a long, complicated effort to define herself outside of Berry Gordy's shadow. And the love songs at the center of this story, the Supremes records, "Where Did Our Love Go, Baby Love?" "Stop in the Name of Love," were made while this relationship was forming, deepening, and ultimately fracturing. You were listening to love music made by a woman whose most significant love affair was with the man running the entire operation. 5 entries left. And the couple at number 5 had a story so complicated, so layered with betrayal and comeback and loss, that it took 2 separate marriages to each other to tell it. Number 5. Tammi, Terrell, and Marvin Gaye. Yes, Marvin appears again on this list. But this entry isn't about his marriage to Anna Gordy. It's about something far more devastating. Tammi Terrell and Marvin Gaye were not a romantic couple. Let's be precise about that. What they were was something rarer. A vocal pairing so perfectly matched, so emotionally resonant, that audiences simply assumed the love they heard on the records was real. Ain't No Mountain High Enough, Your Precious Love. If I Could Build My Whole World Around You. These were not just hit singles. They were declarations. They sounded like 2 people who were deeply, completely in love with each other. But Tammi Terrell's life behind the music was one of the most tragic stories in the entire Motown story. She had been in a relationship with James Brown before her Motown career. A relationship she later described as abusive and violent. She had survived that. She had rebuilt. She had arrived at Motown with a fierce, joyful talent and a determination to make it work. And then, in October 1967, during a performance at Hampden-Sydney College in Virginia, Tammi Terrell collapsed in Marvin Gaye's arms on stage. She had a brain tumor. Over the next 3 years, she underwent 8 brain surgeries. She lost her ability to perform. She lost her hair. She lost her mobility. And through it all, the duets she had recorded with Marvin kept selling, kept playing on radio stations across the country. The sound of pure joy and love, completely divorced from the reality of what she was living through. Marvin was devastated. He has spoken in interviews about how Tammi's illness affected him profoundly. Some music historians believe it contributed to the introspective darkness at the heart of what's going on. Tammi Terrell died on March 16, 1970. She was 24 years old. The music she left behind is some of the most joyful soul ever recorded. And behind it was a life that never got the chance it deserved. 4 entries left. And the story at number 4 involves a husband and wife team who scored massive hits in the 1970s and 80s, and a private collapse so thorough it erased one of them from the music world almost entirely. Number 4. Teddy Pendergrass and Karen Still.
Baby, I got so much love to give.
Teddy Pendergrass was, in the mid to late 1970s, arguably the most sexually charged male vocalist in soul music. Coming off his years as the lead singer of Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, his solo career launched like a rocket. 5 consecutive platinum albums, sold-out concerts marketed almost exclusively to women, a performance presence that was genuinely unlike anything else in the industry.
Girl, it's me.
He was the first solo R&B artist to sell out 5 consecutive shows at the same venue. The first. His personal life during this period was a complicated web of relationships, and his marriage to Karen Still in 1987 came after the accident that had already changed everything. In March of 1982, Teddy Pendergrass was involved in a car accident in Philadelphia that left him paralyzed from the chest down. The passenger in the car, a woman, became the subject of intense tabloid speculation. The accident ended his career as a performer in the traditional sense and forced a complete reimagining of who he was and what he could do. He and Karen married during his recovery years. And the records he made after the accident, Love Language, Joy, carried a different kind of emotional weight. The voice was still there. That instrument had survived intact. But the man behind it was navigating a life that had been fundamentally altered. Their marriage eventually ended in divorce, and Teddy Pendergrass spent the later decades of his life working to reclaim his legacy. Giving interviews, writing his memoir, performing from his wheelchair, insisting that his voice and his story were still worth hearing. He died in 2010. The love he sang about, that overwhelming, consuming, devotional love, was something he spent his whole life pursuing through extraordinary difficulty. And the music he left is a record of that pursuit. 3 entries to go. We're deep now. And the story at number 3 is one that most people think they know, but the full picture is darker, stranger, and more human than the highlight reel has ever let on.
Come here, baby.
Number 3. Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown. This is the one everyone references when they talk about talent and self-destruction and the strange gravity that certain relationships seem to exert on brilliant people. Whitney Houston was not just a great singer, she was a phenomenon. Her debut album in 1985 produced 3 consecutive #1 singles. Her voice was considered by many critics, and by many of her fellow musicians, to be the most technically gifted female voice of the 20th century. Bobby Brown was a different kind of talent. Raw, kinetic, a dancer and performer whose bad boy energy was a direct counterpoint to Whitney's polished, almost divine image. They married in 1992, and almost immediately, the tabloids began documenting a relationship that seemed, from the outside, to be actively destructive to both parties. What the public saw, erratic behavior, missed concerts, a reality TV show, being Bobby Brown, that many people found difficult to watch, and a performance at the 2004 Clive Davis Grammy party that signaled to the industry that something had gone deeply wrong. The music they made during their years together, and the music Whitney made that will outlast everything else, stands as a permanent record of what genius sounds like when it's fully alive. And the story behind it is a reminder of how little we ever really know about the lives behind the voices. 2 entries left. Number 2 will shock you with how close to the surface the collapse was. And number 1. Number 1 is the story that the entire industry still talks about. The story that raises questions nobody has fully answered. The story that changed how a generation of music fans listened to love songs forever. Number 2. Al Green and Mary Woodson. Most people know Al Green as a figure of almost transcendent spiritual calm. The Reverend, the man who left secular music to serve God. The artist whose voice, even at its most earthly and sensual, seemed to carry something sacred in it. Let's stay together. Tired of being alone. I'm still in love with you. These are not just soul songs. They are meditations on devotion. Music that sounds like it was made by a man at total peace with love and with God. The reality behind that image is one of the most disturbing stories in the history of soul music. In October 1974, Al Green was at his home in Memphis. A woman named Mary Woodson, a woman Green had been in a relationship with, entered his bathroom while he was bathing and poured a pot of boiling grits over him, causing severe burns across his back. She then went to a bedroom and shot and killed herself. Al Green survived. He required skin grafts. He spent months recovering. The incident shattered something in him. He has described it in interviews as a divine intervention, a moment that forced him to confront who he was and what he was living for. Within 2 years, he had largely stepped away from secular music, purchased his own church in Memphis, and begun a second life as a pastor. He came back to secular music eventually. He made more records. He won more awards. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But the transformation, from the voice of earthly longing to a man of God, runs directly through the violence of that October night. And the love songs he made before that night, those gorgeous, aching, perfect records, carry a shadow now that they cannot entirely escape. One entry left. I told you at the beginning that number 1 changed how a generation of music fans heard love songs. I told you it raised questions that nobody has fully answered. Here it is. Number 1. Sam Cooke and Barbara Campbell. Sam Cooke was not just a great artist, he was the bridge. The man who carried the sound and the spirit of gospel music across into pop and soul, who proved that black music could be commercially dominant, critically respected, and spiritually resonant all at the same time. You Send Me, A Change Is Gonna Come, Twistin' the Night Away, Wonderful World, Chain Gang. The catalog is extraordinary, not just in its quality, but in its range. Sam Cooke could do everything. He married Barbara Campbell in 1959. They had grown up together in Chicago. Their relationship had the weight and the warmth of a long shared history. And like every entry on this list, the public picture and the private reality were different things. Sam's personal life was marked by infidelity on a significant scale. He was a man who understood his own charisma and used it. There were other relationships, other entanglements, constant complications. And then there was the tragedy that preceded his death. In June 1963, Sam and Barbara's son Vincent, an infant, drowned in the family's swimming pool. It was an accident. It was devastating. And the shadow it cast over the Cooke household in the final year and a half of Sam's life has never been fully documented, because what came next consumed everything. On December 11, 1964, Sam Cooke was shot and killed at the Hacienda Motel in Los Angeles. He was 33 years old. The circumstances of his death have been disputed, analyzed, and debated for 60 years. The official account, that he was shot by the motel manager, Bertha Franklin, in an act of self-defense after he attacked her while searching for a woman he had brought to the motel, has never fully satisfied the people who studied it carefully. What happened that night? Why was Sam Cooke at that motel? What led to the confrontation? The woman he had been with disappeared. The forensic details were inconsistent. The official investigation closed quickly. His wife Barbara received a $200,000 life insurance payout. She remarried less than 3 months later to Bobby Womack, one of Sam's closest musical protégés, a member of the Womack brothers whom Sam had mentored. The marriage scandalized the industry and caused a rupture with the Cooke family that lasted for years. A Change Is Gonna Come. The song that many people consider Sam Cooke's greatest achievement, the song that became an anthem of the civil rights movement, was released posthumously. He recorded it in January 1964. He was dead by December. He never heard it become what it became. The love songs Sam Cooke left behind, the ones that still play at weddings, that still stop people cold when they come through a radio speaker, were made by a man whose life was full of complications, whose marriage was full of pain, and whose death remains one of the great unresolved mysteries in American music history. And a Change Is Gonna Come, the song that isn't a love song at all, but feels like the deepest kind of love for a people and a future, may be the most powerful argument for why the music always outlasts the story behind it.